If you play tennis, badminton, pickleball, or paddle, and you've had ACL surgery, your rehab is missing something very specific to your sport. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what needs to be added into your rehab so you can get back on that court safely and confidently. And make sure you stay for the last solution, because it's the one that most people never get back to. Hi, my name is Josh Arwanto. I'm a physical therapist that specializes in ACL return to sport. And I've helped over 200 people through this exact stage. So let's dive into the video. When it comes to ACL rehab and returning to racket sports like tennis, pickleball, paddle, and badminton, there's usually one big thing missing. And I'll get to that in just a little bit. But let's start with how ACL injuries happen in the first place, because understanding this and how it happens on the court will help us understand how to rehab it better. The main cause for ACL injuries in a racket sport situation is usually what we call a plant and twist. It's usually non-contact, meaning nothing is hitting against you, no opponent is hitting you, but it's usually just you by yourself making the wrong move. What usually occurs for these ACL injuries to happen on the court is usually a few situations. Number one is when we plant our foot to lunge for a wide ball, or decelerating really hard as we're coming towards the net, or simply just landing awkwardly after a hard smash. And it usually happens when the knee rotates while the foot is planted on the ground. Two situations where this happens the most. One is aggressive deceleration into a shot. You're running forward, you plant your foot to stop hard, and the knee takes on a full rotational load. Number two situation is a deep lunge or landing after a smash. You may be stepping out wide with a non-dominant foot, the knee drops inward, and that's where the injury could happen. Now here's the detail that most people never hear about. The court surface which you play on matters more than you think. Usually, it's the harder surfaces like the hard courts that have a higher risk for injury. And for situations like that, when you plant your foot into the ground, if your foot is stuck there, then there's a lot of force going to that knee. And usually the knee is trying to do something else on top of the foot, like a plant or like a twist, right? If that foot is stuck, it essentially has to rotate inward while the foot is stuck on the ground. Now, obviously, we don't want to be avoiding all hard surfaces when you play. You're going to have to be able to play in different styles, different surfaces, different courts. It just means we have to better prepare your knee to be able to handle that kind of demand. And this brings us to the one thing that most ACL rehab in racket sports miss, is multi-directional strength and plyometrics. So just think about what you're doing right now. It's all done in a forward and backwards manner. So think of step ups, right? You're moving up into a step. Think of a lunge you're doing. You're probably doing some sort of forward lunge or up and down like a split squat. But we know tennis, racket sports, everything that you play on the court is not just forward and backwards. There's side-to-side movements, there's rotationals when you swing, and this is how a lot of people feel super confident in their rehab up until that return to sport stage when you're starting to gradually get back on the court. It's hard to build that confidence because you realize that everything you've been doing in the gym in rehab has been done in a very linear pattern. But when you step back on the court, you're exposed to 360 degrees where you have to move in so many different directions. And that's where the confidence in the knee and psychologically becomes really challenging when people get to this point. So here's exactly how you build it. The primary muscles that you need to strengthen are the quads, the glutes, and the calves. Without enough quad strength, your knee will not feel good lunging in any direction. So we talk about that 95% symmetry when coming back to sport. So first step is to make sure that you have enough quad strength to be able to decelerate, to lunge, to get that ball in different directions. Now the glutes and the calves are just as important because the glutes are above the knee and the calves are below the knee. And so those two joints will help support that knee to make it feel stable and more confident for you to be able to move in different directions. Now here's how I approach it with my clients. I like to work for at least 12 weeks minimum of strength work. So if we're talking about multi-directional strength, which I'll get to in just a little bit, we want to see at least enough time for it to build proper strength before we take that into power and explosiveness. So always remember that strength comes first and power comes second. So here are two multi-directional strength exercises that I like to rehab with my racket sports clients. The first one are the star lunges. This is a great one because it exposes you to lunge in different directions, likely the directions that you'll need to get back on that court. I like these at about 6 to 8 reps, doing with control, with a good amount of weight. You'll see your confidence build up over the next few weeks. Exercise number 2, we take a regular step up, which likely you're familiar with, but now we're going the transverse plane. Going the transverse plane just means rotationally. So we're coming up, we're not stepping up forward and up, we're stepping up to the side and rotationally. And you want to do these again for a minimum of 10 sets per week, right? So if you break it down, you want to break these up in a way that you can do these multiple times a week. 10 sets total for at least 12 weeks before we get to the next stage. But here's the thing, building that multi-directional strength is the first step, but it's not enough to build that confidence on the court. There's a specific step that most rehab programs miss, and that's what I'll get into now. Once you have that 12 weeks of strength foundations, it's time to turn that strength into explosiveness. 3 exercises that I like for this stage. The first one is the eccentric lateral lunge. Specifically, the lowering phase of this exercise is great at learning how to absorb speed with load. This is exactly what happens when you lunge for that wide ball and you're trying to control your landing. The second exercise is a single leg hop to land laterally. You want to hop on one leg laterally and land and stick that landing on the other side. Now, stick means hold. You want to hold with control for at least 2 full seconds. The third exercise is one of my favorites. It's the lateral medicine ball bounce. You're going to be holding a decently heavy medicine ball at your chest. And what you want to do is think about exploding to the left side, absorbing that impact, and then immediately exploding back to the other side. It's a continuous movement where you're bounding, you're going side to side with weight. So very explosive movement that will build your confidence. This is a core movement pattern in every racket sport. So you want to work through these exercises in order. The first one, the eccentric lateral lunge, is kind of like your entry point to power. You're learning how to absorb that force. The second, you're going to learn how to express that force on one leg, hopping to the side, and then transferring and sticking that landing. And then the last one is putting it all together. It's kind of the most fun and the most explosive movement, is just learning how to bound, absorb, push off, absorb, push off, absorb, push off. When all those 3 exercises feel more automatic, feel more controlled, you have no pain doing them, you have no hesitation, that's when you know you're ready to progress. So to summarize, racket sports need a different type of rehab plan than other sports. So the focus in your rehab shouldn't just be straight line exercises, but it should be multi-directional. Start with strength and then to power. If you want to learn the exact system that I use for my clients to get them back to tennis and racket sports, I put together a free video training that explains the exact process that I use. I'll link that in the description, and I'll see you in the next one.